All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 169. First, want to start off thanking any of you who have joined in for the lives I've been doing on my YouTube channel. I don't know if you're either watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Apple, Spotify, or wherever, but have been going live during Cavs games. I did a Browns game, an Ohio State game, something I definitely want to do more of this year, just to kind of watch along with everyone on YouTube during the game. So definitely subscribe on the YouTube to see when I will be going live, because I'm definitely gonna plan to continue to do that. And it's fun to chat with everyone during the games. Have seen some exciting Cavs games watching live so far. I was live during the OKC game, which was really fun because obviously that was probably the most important game they've had so far this season, and won in very exciting fashion. So yeah, just wanted to thank everyone and keep checking it out. Okay, so a couple random topics to get in today. I do want to talk a little bit of Cavs and want to talk about the Browns OC hire that they just made. Tommy Rees is the new offensive coordinator. And then just talk some more general thoughts on the NFL playoffs so far, and I don't know, just any random feelings I have about all of that. Okay, so let's start off with Cavs talk. I did want to talk about the Oklahoma City game because when I recorded this podcast, I was kind of talking in preparation for that game and just what I thought they needed to do to get things done. And look, I'm not always right, but this time I will say I was right. It really felt like going into that game, because Chet was going to be out, that Evan and Jarrett were really going to hold the keys to the upside that the Cavs could have in that game, the advantage that they could have in that game. And they very much did. They completely dominated that game, I think, on both ends of the floor. And I think the craziest part about that game was Donovan only had 11 points. So it was one of his poorest offensive performances of the season, but you didn't feel that impact at all because just about every other guy was able to pick up some slack for the lack of Donovan scoring in that game. When it comes to Evan and Jarrett, Evan had 21, 10, and 7. Jarrett had 25, 12, and 6. Offensively, they were both looking, and they have all season looked more aggressive than they have in previous years, but specifically Evan Mobley, I just enjoyed so much in that game, and really in the last couple of games, watching how confident he is on the offensive end when he, just needs to take it himself, and he's in the paint. Like, he will body people. He is not afraid and is not standing back and isn't going up, scared or timid. He is going up strong every single time. He knows the moves he wants to make in the post. Like, it's a new player to watch. We haven't seen this level of confidence for him, and I think we all saw the potential in him and the fact that he could get there, but haven't really gotten to see it come to fruition yet in previous seasons. And now this is just like, this is the Evan Mobley we have all been discussing and hoping was there and waiting to see. It feels like he is here. So I'm just so happy for him in that. And also just nailing threes, like his 3-point shooting has been great this season. And I kind of, like, going into this year, hoped that either he was going to take a step with his 3-point shooting or was going to take a step with his post play, and he's done both. And better than I could have hoped for. So just hoping he can keep it up, because when you're playing a team like OKC who doesn't have Chet in the game, and you're able to use that advantage that you have with Jarrett and Evan, like, that's a killer that a lot of teams don't know how to handle. And it was funny watching Oklahoma City Thunder fans on Twitter who maybe haven't watched a ton of Cavs basketball, obviously knew that the Cavs were really good, but got to see Evan and Jarrett in all of their glory and the way they were talking about it. It just made me happy to see them getting the respect that they deserve. And look, a lot of respect for OKC too. Like SGA, that jumper is pretty killer. Some people feel like maybe he pushes off a little bit when he goes to shoot those jumpers. And I can see that, but I don't want to like scapegoat one of those issues as to why, people can't defend him. I think he has a great jumper. So, all respect to them. I think I was saying this on my live. There's like a big similarity, I feel like, in the way the Cavs and the Thunder operate as a group. Like there's not a big flashy star. It's kind of a group coming together and playing well. Like SGA is their star, Donovan is our star, but they don't feel like they're above the rest of the group. They're not super crazy loud personalities. It's just very much a team aspect, and I think that's really fun to watch. So hopefully we have another Thunder matchup coming up in a few days later this week. So hoping for the best there, that they're able to get it done again, this time on the road. But I think it's fun to have those matchups pretty close to each other. Other than that game, Cavs have had a couple other games since then. They had the Raptors game, which I went to. They looked pretty tired to start the game. It was a back-to-back after the OKC game, so I can very much understand why they would be exhausted. But they found a way to really turn things on in the second half and later in the game, and we're just like, oh, we're still going to try to win this game, and we're able to do just that. I also was so entertained that I forget what team Kelly Olynyk is on half the time, but he is on the Raptors, and so being in the arena for the continued booing now one full decade later was really funny and entertaining. And I just was like thinking, what does Kelly think in those moments? Like every time he's coming to Cleveland, is he like, oh my God, I have to do this again, and they're just going to be booing me every time I touch the ball? Or does he kind of like it and is like, yeah, I'm important in this city and they think about me a lot? I'm curious what his mindset is going into that. But it was good to get the win against the Raptors, but they did finally break their win streak Sunday against the Pacers. Look, it felt like it was going to have to end at some point, and basically they ran into a night where shooting was bad. They just weren't hitting shots. And sometimes it's that simple. Like, I don't think necessarily they were taking terrible shots. They just weren't making them. And it was across the board. No one was having a really great night. So sometimes it's just not your night, and it's going to happen. I know that's so rare for us as Cavs fans because we're so used to scoring and winning this season, but it does happen. And then we have the Pacers, again, recording this before the Pacers game tonight, and then I believe next then is the Thunder. So we are on our way and getting closer and closer here to the All-Star break. So I'm sure that'll be a much needed rest for everyone. I do get nervous about the All-Star break though, because I'm like, don't lose your mojo. Like, I don't want them to lose the momentum that they've continued to carry throughout the first part of this season. Sometimes you fear that they get too much in their head then, or lose their touch throughout the All-Star break. So hope that they can just like keep the energy and the momentum going, and hopefully we have a bunch of All-Stars so they can keep that excitement going at the All-Star game too. Which actually brings me to my next topic about the Cavs, which is I think the core four should all be All-Stars this season. And I know that might sound like Cleveland bias or whatever you want to call it, but I think there is a really legitimate case for all four of them to be All-Stars this season. Now, I think, based on voting and everything, most people feel like Donovan and Evan should be All-Stars, and I think the case has been made, I guess, pretty clearly for both of them. But I want to make the case for Darius and Jarrett too, because I think both of them are deserving of being All-Stars this season. I think both of them are having better seasons than they were when they were All-Stars back in 2022, which I know doesn't necessarily mean anything because different players are, playing well in different seasons. There were injuries that were taken away from certain players in that season that weren't able to participate in the All-Star game. So I know all those things are factors, but both of those guys are having better seasons than they did in their previous All-Star season. For Darius, I think he has been one of not just the most clutch players on the Cavs, but most clutch players in the league this season. And it's funny because I feel like Darius has gotten this reputation for like not showing up in big moments, which I don't quite know why that has formed, but overall this season, one of the most clutch players across the league. And his shooting percentage from the field and from 3-point are the best of his career by far. It's not even close, significantly better than every other season he's had. 50% from the field, 43% from three. And if he continues at that rate, he's going to be one of very few players in NBA history who have shot 50, 40, and then 90 from free throw in NBA history. So I don't know how you can't be an all-star when those are the conversations that we're having about him right now. It seems silly to me to leave him out. I feel like it's almost like a reputation thing with a lot of guys and how people view them as all-stars or not all-stars in this league. Then from Jared's perspective, I think he's been one of the best in the league in rim protection, rebounding, dominance in the paint, quite a few fun blocks this year as well that I think we've all enjoyed watching. And look, I think it should matter that like this team is making history. Like the fact that all of these guys are taking this team to another stratosphere that even some of the best players in NBA history haven't been able to take their teams to. I think that matters. And I think that more players should be considered to be all-stars because of that fact. Like I think that with a lot of awards that are given out there, like when we talk about the NFL awards and we talk about who's going to be MVP or who's going to be defensive player of the year, a lot of the conversations revolve around like, did you elevate your team to another level? I mean, that's what we constantly were talking about with defensive player of the year, and Myles Garrett was like last season he was the best player on the best defense and was taking them to historic levels. So that was part of the argument for him. I think it's a similar thing when you're trying to decide who's going to be all-stars. So I know that's silly in some ways because that's not like their actual stats or, concrete things you can look at of their play on the court, but I think it does matter. And then, I think the small market thing is probably playing into this in a way on why they're not being considered as heavily. I think if any of these guys were putting up the numbers that they're putting up in a bigger market, a bigger city, I think they would probably be getting the votes and the conversation behind it that they're not getting because it's Cleveland. And I hate to make that a talking point, but it's reality. And I do think it's disrespectful to them and what they have accomplished. I think even as good as the Cavs record is, there's still a ton of NBA fans who probably watch a lot of games who have watched like maybe one Cavs game this season or haven't watched a single one and don't even know why the Cavs are as good as they are and can't speak to the way the play on the court for all of these guys has elevated. So I do think it's definitely a factor. When you're not getting nationally televised games at a high rate, people can't watch you and people can't know what you're doing. So it matters. Okay, I think that is all I have about the Cavs, but hopefully we get back on the winning train. Losing feels weird and incorrect. Okay, so let's talk Tommy Rees. So big news for the Browns. Obviously, it was talked about they were interviewing a number of guys for the offensive coordinator role after they let go of Ken Dorsey. I think the two big ones people were discussing were Kubiak and Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees obviously already with the Browns organization as the tight ends coach this most recent season, and decided to keep it in-house. That's what they ended up going with. And this decision makes me think a couple of different things. So one, I think Tommy Rees is someone that you hire if you are really interested in developing a young quarterback in this league. So my antennas are up a little bit more on, are they going to take a swing on a first round quarterback because of this hire? I think it makes me feel like it's a little bit more likely than I previously thought it was. Now, they could still take a later round quarterback and want to be focused on developing that quarterback. But I think this makes it just a little bit more likely that is maybe the route they're going to take. I am really curious to see if they end up bringing in someone separate to be a quarterbacks coach, or if Tommy Rees is going to kind of take on the role more so of quarterbacks coach. And I think a lot of that is dependent on whether or not Kevin goes back to play calling, right? I am under the impression that I think Kevin is going to go back to play calling. Obviously, this has not been confirmed yet at the time of me recording this, but I think that he is going to go back to calling plays, which will make Tommy Rees more of the like AVP type offensive coordinator, which in a lot of ways AVP was focused on the quarterback. So I think if Kevin goes back to calling plays, there is a possibility that they don't bring in a separate guy as a quarterbacks coach and just kind of have Tommy Rees be like OC, but very focused on the quarterback. So we'll kind of have to see. I think all of those decisions will come out in the weeks ahead. I would kind of like to have a quarterback coach, I think, brought in just to have more minds and more opinions and more guys who can work with a young quarterback, because we're going to have to start developing. So I feel like that they should bring someone in still regardless, but whoever is calling plays, I think, is going to make that decision very telling. But to talk a little bit more about Tommy Rees and I guess just his career and what he has done so far, if you're not super aware of him, because he's been in the college game some and obviously hasn't been in like a really high level role in an NFL organization yet. Tight ends coach this most recent year with the Browns. I felt like he did a really good job with Akins and Blake Whiteheart, who many of us had no idea who that man was the first time his name was called out, I believe in the first game of the season. I can't remember if he scored or if he just had like a really good play. I think he scored. And it was just like, oh, who is this Blake Whiteheart that we don't know about? But overall, I feel like he did a good job with working with them and developing both of them this season, because David dealt with quite a few injuries, was in and out of games, wasn't always able to stay on the field. So I think he got the most out of that room, given the fact that they didn't have consistent quarterback play, and it was probably hard in many ways to develop offensive skill players when you are really struggling with who's going to play quarterback and getting a guy to consistently throw the ball accurately. Prior to Cleveland, Tommy Rees spent a year as the offensive coordinator for University of Alabama in 2023, worked alongside Nick Saban right before he retired. So obviously learned a lot from him there. And I think that has really set him on a track for the rest of his career to be a very sought after candidate. Even prior to that, he played quarterback at Notre Dame, and then he was a coach with them as well from 2020 to 2022. Going into this kind of interview cycle, there was a lot of conversation that he could be an offensive coordinator candidate for Vrabel in New England. So once, which I haven't gotten to talk about on here, Mike Vrabel is now the head coach of the New England Patriots, which I think most of us probably saw coming. And there were a lot of talks that he might want to bring Tommy Rees along with him to be the offensive coordinator. So I am curious how those conversations went with the team, if the team had to give him something additional in order to get him to stay in Cleveland, or if he really wanted to stay in Cleveland. What was Vrabel going to be offering him? Did he even go as far as to have those conversations, about like play calling there? I have no idea. So I would be curious to know all of that on why he ended up taking the role in Cleveland, or if it was ever a possibility for him that he wanted to take a role in New England. A fun fact, this is just a random I guess it is still a football fact about him, but his dad worked for the Browns front office for many years. I think it was like 2004 to 2008 or somewhere around that time period. And Tommy was a ball boy for the Browns, so has some roots with the team, which I feel like there's going to be Browns fans that's going to be the most important fact about Tommy Rees. They're going to be like, oh, he gets us. He was a ball boy, worked from the ground up in this blue collar city. Like, that's going to be very important to a lot of people. So felt like I needed to mention that one. I think it's going to be a good fit for the Browns. Look, I think they have pretty similar offensive mindsets. Him and Stefanski have pretty similar offensive mindsets. Stefanski likes the Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak type of playbook. And, with the play action passes, I think that's something Tommy Rees likes to incorporate as well. Tommy Rees is known to really like multiple tight end sets, and that's something we know Kevin Stefanski historically has loved. So I think you're getting two guys who are on the same page in a lot of ways, which is extremely different from the Ken Dorsey, Kevin Stefanski molding of the minds together, where it was like these are two guys that have completely different philosophies that we're trying to bring into one to get the most out of this quarterback. Now I think it's two guys who are good at a lot of the same things, are on the same page in a lot of ways, and want to find someone to fit the offense that they have, already built and believed in. So I think that makes a lot of sense from that perspective. Something that I think Tommy can bring to them that they haven't had a lot of in the past is incorporating more pre-snap motion. I think this has been a criticism of the Browns offense. They're one of the lowest in the league in terms of pre-snap motion. And, it was supposed to be incorporated more with Ken Dorsey, and we just never really saw a lot of that. But we didn't see a lot of the things that we thought we were going to see with the Ken Dorsey offense. So I think I'll be interested to see if they are able to just up their percentage of time that they're incorporating that into the offense a little bit more. But overall, I feel good about the hire. I don't think it was anything off the wall too crazy. I think it was expected in a lot of ways. So at the end of the day, you just got to find a quarterback that's going to fit. You could talk about all these hires and none of it matters unless you get a quarterback that works for what you want to do. So we will see. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is the wild card weekend. Just some general thoughts. The games were pretty bad overall. Like it just wasn't that enjoyable. I feel like wildcard weekend does end up being this in a lot of ways. I was happy to see the Steelers lose. Ravens destroyed them. I will no longer be cheering for the Ravens anymore. That was the only game they're going to get out of me. The best game, I think, was probably Bucks Commanders, which ended up being 23-20, close game. Jaden Daniels, could not be happier for him. I just think what he has done this season has been really exciting, and it's had its ups and downs. He has not been consistent by any means, but really cool to see that happen for him. And it's also fun that the Commanders' offense is a fun offense to watch because they do not punt. Like, this has been consistent throughout the season. They're going for it on fourth down. They are not punting. And I personally enjoy that. So that was a great game to watch. I think divisional round is my favorite weekend in all of football. I think the best games happen that weekend. There's enough games to watch that I can get enjoyment out of. Whereas I feel like conference championship weekend, like the games could be good, but there's just two of them, so it's not as exciting. I like divisional round because you still have 4 games. Like it's still exciting. So looking forward to all of that. I think the best game is probably going to be Bills-Ravens. Everyone is, I think, looking forward to that. It could be an all-time classic. I hope that they don't let us down in terms of, giving us a lot of offense in that game. So very excited to watch that one. But yeah, we'll just keep trucking along. Last thing that I wanted to mention that wasn't NFL related, Ohio State in the national championship. Gosh, that game against Texas was real fun, wasn't it? It was a little bit stressful throughout the game. I felt like the Buckeyes were playing a little bit timid offensively. I saw some remnants of the Michigan game in that game, and I was a little concerned. I think Texas has a great defense, and I think their corners did a really good job with Jeremiah Smith. At the same time, I would have loved to get Jeremiah Smith the ball a little more. I remember sitting there in like the third quarter being like, Jeremiah Smith has 1 reception for 3 yards today. This is illegal and ridiculous. So that was a little bit frustrating, but overall, you still got the win. Could not be happier for Jack Sawyer. He has been around this team for a long time now, and had such a great play. And actually, the play prior to it was also so impressive with Caleb Downs. You know, Texas had the ball on the 1 yard line. They were poised to score. And for Caleb Downs to have the play that gets them pushed back to like the 9 yard line, and completely changes how they have to call a play for in order for them to score. You know, it truly changed everything, and really gave Jack Sawyer the opportunity to have the play he did, knocking that ball down, picking it up, running back to score. You know, the story writers of college football gotta love that moment even more, because Jack Sawyer and Quinn Ewers were freshman roommates at Ohio State. So of course, you know, that writes itself and is very full circle for him to be getting that moment against him. So looking forward to the national championship against Notre Dame. It'll be coming up in a week-ish. Yeah, a week here. And look, I feel confident, but I don't know. I'm just like still a little weary of what could happen. You can never feel, I guess, too confident in a national championship game. So I think the Buckeyes are far and away the better team and should win, but you just never know. So we shall see. But that is all I have for you guys today. Once again, thank you for joining the lives on the YouTube. Keep joining them, commenting on them, and interacting while we're watching games together. Like I said, I get a lot of enjoyment out of talking to everyone during it and want to keep doing it. So please join and subscribe on the YouTube, most importantly. Follow or subscribe on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Share with a friend, share the YouTube with a friend, share the podcast with a friend, all that good stuff. More fun things to come here in 2025. It's crazy. I started doing this podcast in 2019. I can't believe it's 2025 now. And I'm very proud of myself. I think it is really hard to consistently continue at something, especially that's not like some, you know, I'm not, pardon my take out here, making a ton of money off of what I'm doing. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I am very committed to the things that I love. So I can't believe it's been this long that I've been doing it, but I appreciate everyone who tunes in and listens, and looking forward to hopefully talking next week about an Ohio State win, hopefully some exciting NFL playoff games, and hopefully some more Cavs wins too. You guys have a great one, and as always, go Browns.